The moment the world heard the name Luis Antonio Tagle, everything changed. It was May 2025. The Catholic Church had reached a turning point, and now the first ever Filipino Pope had been crowned. Luis Antonio Tagle, now known to the world as Pope Luis I, stood as a symbol of faith, humility, and hope for billions. The Catholic Church had chosen a son of Manila, a simple man with a deep love for God and the poor, to carry the weight of the Church's future. It was not only a historical moment for Catholics, but also a global sign of unity, change, and spiritual renewal. From the crowded streets of Manila to the towering halls of the Vatican, the air was electric. Cardinals from across the world had gathered in conclave. Their faces were serious, their prayers deep, as they selected a leader for 1.3 billion souls. When white smoke finally rose from the chimney of the Sistine Chapel, the world paused. And then the announcement. The crowd in St. Peter's Square held their breath. The name Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle echoed across the square, and, with that, the history of the Church shifted. Pope Luis I had been chosen. The people cheered, many cried, and others knelt in prayer. It wasn't just the Catholics who rejoiced. Around the globe, people from all religions and walks of life welcomed the news with joy. The Church, which for centuries had been led by European popes, now had a leader from Asia. This was more than a religious event. It was a message to the world that the Church had heard the voice of the global South, of Asia, of the humble. A message that everyone mattered, no matter where they came from. As Pope Luis I stepped onto the balcony overlooking St. Peter's Square, he was not dressed in golden robes or covered in jewels. He appeared in a simple white robe, his face peaceful, his eyes filled with light. His smile was warm, comforting, and real. He raised his hand to bless the crowd, and the cheers turned into tears of joy. In that single moment, the world saw not just a pope but a shepherd, a guide who had walked among the poor, prayed with the weak and stood beside the forgotten. The papal inauguration that followed was majestic, yet deeply humble. The ancient rituals unfolded in front of the world. Cardinals in scarlet robes knelt before the new pope, pledging their loyalty and love. The fisherman's ring, symbolizing the authority passed down from St. Peter, was gently placed on Pope Luis III's finger. Then came the traditional papal crown, the tiara. But in a beautiful break from tradition, Pope Luis I declined the golden tiara. Instead, he chose a simple white mitre, the headpiece of a bishop. His message was clear. He had come to serve, not to be served. He had come not as a king, but as a shepherd of souls. That act touched hearts across the world. In Manila, church bells rang in joy. In African villages, prayers were sung in open fields. In cathedrals across Europe, tears flowed. A man who had walked through the slums of the Philippines was now walking into the heart of the Vatican. Pope Luis I's coronation was not just about one man. It was about the poor, the forgotten, the faithful, and the hopeful. It was about the future of the Church, moving toward compassion, simplicity, and truth. From the beginning, Pope Luis XI made it known that his mission was not only to guide the Catholic Church, but to open the doors of love and understanding to all people. In his first speech, he called for peace, unity, and care for the poor. He reminded the world that faith is not about walls, it's about bridges. His words touched not only Christians, but people of all beliefs. Leaders from across religions sent messages of love and support. The chief rabbi of Israel spoke of shared values between Jews and Christians. Muslim leaders praised his devotion to peace and dialogue. The Dalai Lama sent words of kindness, recognizing Pope Luis I's commitment to the poor and the spirit of compassion. In Jerusalem, a beautiful sound filled the air. Church bells rang as the call to prayer echoed from nearby mosques. Rabbis, imams, and priests stood side by side offering blessings. This was no ordinary day. It was a moment when faiths came together, not in argument, but in joy. The election of Pope Luis III had united the world in a way that no political leader could have done. The streets of Manila became a place of celebration. People waved flags, lit candles, and sang songs of praise. Across Asia, Africa, Latin America, And even in the bustling cities of Europe and America, people felt hope rise in their hearts. But who is Pope Louis XI? To many, he is a new face. To others, he is already a beloved figure. Born in Manila into a devout Catholic family, young Luis, lovingly called Cheto by his loved ones, grew up with faith all around him. Yet his path to priesthood was not easy. He struggled with doubts. He wondered if he was worthy. But what made him special was not his perfection but his honesty. He spoke about his doubts, he admitted his fears. He showed people that true faith isn't about being perfect, it's about being real. As a young priest, he served in some of Manila's poorest areas. He listened more than he spoke. He prayed with families who had lost everything. He brought food, comfort, and laughter to the forgotten. People didn't see him as a distant priest. They saw him as a friend. His sermons were full of warmth, his voice always kind. He talked about justice, fairness, and love. Soon his work began to be noticed. The Vatican saw in him not just a good priest, but a man with vision, courage, and deep compassion. He was made Archbishop of Manila, then a cardinal. Even as his titles grew, his heart remained simple. He never forgot the slums, the orphans, the tired mothers, the struggling workers. As a cardinal, he continued to speak out against injustice. He spoke out against corruption and cruelty. He reminded people that the Church must stand with the poor, not in words, but in action. Now, as Pope Louis XI, he carries all those memories with him. He walks into the Vatican with the spirit of Manila in his heart. He brings the scent of the rice fields, the sound of roosters at dawn, the smiles of children playing in narrow alleys. He brings the dreams of every poor child who ever felt invisible. He brings the prayers of millions who have longed for a church that walks beside them. The global reaction to his election has been extraordinary. World leaders, presidents, kings, and queens sent their blessings. The United Nations lit candles in his honor. In mosques, temples, synagogues, and churches, people prayed for his leadership. For once the world paused, not for tragedy or war, but for hope. People were reminded of something beautiful, that even in a divided world, faith can unite. Ordinary people also joined the celebration. Families gathered in front of their TVs, holding hands and crying tears of joy. School children in the Philippines sang songs for the new pope. In South America, people marched through the streets with candles and rosaries. In Africa, joyful dances were held in village squares. In Europe and America, church bells rang in celebration.